I've worked with over 100 combat medics in my 20 years as a Navy SEAL. I've seen courage that defies description, skill that borders on miraculous, and dedication that puts most people's entire lives to shame. But I've only met one medic who saved an entire operation without firing a single shot, disarmed a hostile without touching a weapon, and walked away from the teams with a secret that command still doesn't talk about. Her name was Petty Officer Second Class Sarah Chun, and this is the story they'll never put in the official record. The first time I saw Chun was at Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado. I was running a pre-deployment workup for my SEAL team, getting the squad ready for rotation into Afghanistan. We'd just lost our previous corpsman to a training injury, torn ACL that ended his deployment cycle, and needed a replacement fast. Command sent us Chun. I'll be honest, I had doubts. Not because she was a woman. I'd worked with female intel officers, pilots, and support personnel who were absolute professionals. But SEAL team operations are brutal, the physical demands are extreme, and we were headed into the Khyber province, one of the hottest zones in the entire theater. Chun showed up to the first briefing 15 minutes early, gear already squared away, medical kit organized to perfection. She was small, maybe 5'4", 130 pounds soaking wet, with her hair pulled back in a tight bun and the kind of eyes that didn't miss anything. Petty Officer Chun reporting, Master Chief, she said, crisp and professional. At ease, I said. You know where you're going? Khyber Province, Afghanistan. High-altitude operations, expected contact with Taliban and possibly HVTs. Medical concerns include GSW trauma, blast injuries, altitude sickness, and infectious disease management. She'd done her homework. That was a good start. You've been downrange before? 2 deployments. Iraq, both times. Ramadi and Fallujah. One of my operators, a senior chief named Mike Rodriguez, looked up from his equipment check. Fallujah? When? 2006 and 2007. Rodriguez whistled low. That was a meat grinder. Yes, senior chief. It was. Something in the way she said it, flat, matter of fact, with weight behind the words, told me she'd earned those deployments the hard way. Chun, I need to know you can keep up, I said. We move fast, we move light, and when things go sideways, we don't slow down for anyone. Can you do that? She met my eyes. Master Chief, I didn't make it through corpsman training, field medical service school, and 2 combat deployments by being slow. I'll keep up. And if anyone on this team goes down, I'll keep them alive long enough to get them home. That's my job. Rodriguez grinned. I like her already. The first month of workup was designed to break people. Long ruck marches with 70-pound packs. Live fire drills in full kit. Combat swimmer training in the Pacific at night. Medical scenarios where Chun would have to treat simulated casualties while under simulated fire, making split-second decisions with incomplete information. She kept up. More than that, she excelled. During one exercise, we simulated a helicopter crash with multiple casualties in a hostile zone. Chun had to triage 4 wounded operators while directing security and coordinating medevac, all while our instructors threw smoke grenades and fired blanks to simulate enemy contact. I watched her work. She moved like water, efficient, calm, no wasted motion. The most critical casualty got treatment first. The one who was screaming the loudest got told to shut up and hold pressure on his own wound. She called for the medevac with precise coordinates and medical status codes, while simultaneously starting in 4 on a simulated sucking chest wound. Afterwards, the senior instructor pulled me aside. Master Chief, I've been running these exercises for 8 years. That's the best performance I've ever seen from a new corpsman. Where'd you find her? Command sent her. Command got lucky. But it wasn't until we deployed that I understood what made Chun different. It wasn't just skill. It was something deeper, an understanding of what we did and why it mattered. We hit the ground in Khyber Province in late September. The firebase was a collection of hardened structures perched on a hillside, surrounded by mountains that had been hostile territory since before I was born. Our mission was direct action, hunting high-value Taliban targets in the valleys and villages where regular army units couldn't or wouldn't go. Chin integrated into the team like she'd been with us for years. She understood SEAL culture, quiet professionalism, dark humor to cope with stress, and an absolute commitment to the mission and each other. She never asked for special treatment, never complained about the conditions, and when the guys made the inevitable crude jokes, she either ignored them or fired back with something twice as sharp. Our first mission was a night raid on a suspected Taliban safe house in a village 12 kilometers from the firebase. Standard operation: fast insertion, hit the target, grab the HVD or intelligence materials, and extract before the enemy could organize a response. We moved through the darkness like ghosts. Chin stayed in the middle of the formation, standard position for the medic, but I noticed she wasn't just watching for threats. She was watching us, making sure no one was favoring a leg, struggling with the altitude, showing signs of heat exhaustion even in the mountain cold. The raid went clean. We secured the target building, detained 3 suspected Taliban fighters, and recovered a cache of weapons and documents. No shots fired. Perfect operation. But on the exfil, one of our operators, a kid named Thompson, fresh from his first deployment, stepped wrong on a loose rock. His ankle rolled hard. I heard the pop from 10 feet away. Chin was on him before he hit the ground. "Don't move. Let me see it." Thompson was tough, trying not to show pain. "I'm good, just twisted it." I said, "Don't move." Chin's voice had that edge that all good medics develop. Not mean, just absolute. "Rodriguez, I need light." Covered position. She examined Thompson's ankle with quick, sure movements. I could see it swelling already, even in the dim red light from Rodriguez's flashlight. "It's a bad sprain, possibly fractured," she said. "He can't walk on it." We were 4 kilometers from the landing zone. Thompson was 190 pounds with full kit, and we were in hostile territory with detained prisoners. "Can you stabilize it?" I asked. "I can immobilize it. But if he walks on this, he'll do permanent damage. He needs to be carried." No hesitation, no sugarcoating, just the medical reality. We distributed Thompson's gear and carried him in shifts. Chin modified her own kit on the move, redistributing weight so she could take a turn carrying him despite being half his size. When Rodriguez tried to wave her off, she just looked at him. "I didn't ask for permission, Senior Chief. I'm carrying my patient." She took her turn, all 4 kilometers. That's when the team really accepted her. Not because she was tough. Plenty of people are tough. But because she understood what we all knew. You don't leave people behind, and you do whatever it takes. 6 weeks into the deployment, we got tasked with a reconnaissance mission in a remote valley. Intelligence suggested a Taliban commander was using a small village as a base, moving between there and Pakistan across the mountains. Our job was to observe, gather intelligence, and if the opportunity presented itself, capture or eliminate the target. We inserted at dawn, hiking into the mountains to a hide site overlooking the village. The plan was to observe for 72 hours, rotating watch, staying invisible. Chin set up her medical station in the hide site with the same precision she brought to everything. Organized supplies, quick access trauma kit, constant hydration monitoring for the team. At altitude in the Afghan mountains, dehydration could be as dangerous as enemy fire. The first day passed uneventfully. The village below seemed quiet. Farmers working small fields, women moving between buildings, children playing in the dirt streets. No obvious Taliban presence. The second day, Chin noticed something. "Master Chief," she said quietly, handing me her binoculars. "Look at the children. Specifically, their movement patterns." I watched. At first, I didn't see it. Just kids being kids. But Chin walked me through it. "Notice the little girl in the blue dress? She's not playing with the others. She's watching the road. Every time an adult approaches, she signals, tugs her ear. And see those 2 boys by the well? They're not fetching water. They're positioned where they can see both approaches to the village. She was right. The kids were spotters, which meant the Taliban were using them as an early warning system. That changes the tactical picture, Rodriguez said, studying the village with new eyes. But Chen wasn't done. Master Chief, there's something else. That clinic on the east side. See the building with the faded red crescent? Yeah, it's open. I can see medical supplies through the window. But in 2 days, I haven't seen anyone go in or come out for treatment. Could be closed. In a village this remote, they'd use it. Unless they're scared to. I looked at her. Scared of what? Taliban control medical care. It's one of their tactics. They decide who gets treatment and who doesn't. Loyalty test. I'd read intelligence reports about that, but seeing it in practice was different. You think they're holding the clinic hostage. I think something's wrong. And I think those kids are being forced to work as spotters instead of being kids. Which means Taliban are here, and they're not just passing through. That night, our target showed up. Taliban commander, 3 armed fighters, moving into a compound on the north side of the village. We called it in, got authorization for a capture mission. The operation brief was straightforward. Night raid, fast in and out, secure the HVT, and extract before dawn. But Chen pulled me aside before we moved out. Master Chief, request permission to check on that clinic during the raid. Chen, that's not part of the mission. I know, but if there are wounded civilians being denied care, or if the Taliban are using it to store weapons, we need to know. She had a point. You'll have 60 seconds. In and out. Rodriguez goes with you. Thank you, Master Chief. The raid went like clockwork. We hit the compound at 0200, secured the Taliban commander and his fighters without a shot fired. Clean, professional, exactly how it's supposed to work. While the assault element secured the target, Chun and Rodriguez moved to the clinic. I monitored from Overwatch position, watching through night vision as they breached the door. Chen's voice came through the radio, tight and controlled. Master Chief, you need to see this. I moved to her position with 2 operators. Inside the clinic, lit by our weapon lights, was a scene that made my blood run cold. 3 people. A woman in her 50s, unconscious on a cot, infected wound on her leg that had gone septic. A teenage boy with burns across his arms and chest, old injuries that had never been properly treated. And a man in his 30s, missing his right hand, not from combat, but from Taliban justice. Chen was already working, moving between patients with controlled urgency. The woman needs antibiotics and 4 fluids immediately. The boy needs burn treatment. The man is stable, but in pain. Chun, we need to move, Master Chief. If we leave them, they'll die. The woman has maybe 12 hours. The infection is in her blood. Rodriguez looked at me. We both knew what this meant. Taking civilians slowed us down, complicated the exfil, and wasn't part of the mission parameters. But Chun was already starting in 4 on the woman, her hands steady, her voice calm as she talked to the boy in broken Pashto, telling him he was going to be okay. How long to stabilize them for transport? I asked. 10 minutes. Maybe less. You've got 8. Rodriguez, help her. Everyone else, set security. We're taking them with us. The exfil was harder than the raid. We had the HVT, 3 wounded civilians, and a 13-kilometer hike to the landing zone. Chun rotated between the patients while we moved, checking vitals, adjusting 4 rates, keeping them alive with the supplies in her kit and sheer determination. The woman crashed twice. Both times, Chun brought her back. Once with emergency drugs that were supposed to be reserved for our own team casualties. I didn't say anything. She was making the call, and it was the right one. We made the LZ just before dawn. The helicopters were already inbound, rotors cutting the cold mountain air. As we loaded the civilians onto the medevac bird, the woman, barely conscious, grabbed Chen's hand. She said something in Pashto. Our interpreter translated. She says you are like her daughter. She says God sent you. Chen just nodded, professional as always. Tell her she's going to be fine. Tell her the doctors at the base will take care of her. But I saw something in Chin's face I hadn't seen before. Not satisfaction. Something deeper. Like she'd just remembered why she'd taken this job in the first place. The Taliban commander we captured turned out to be a significant intelligence asset. The 3 civilians Chun treated survived and eventually provided information about Taliban operations in the valley. Command was pleased. Our squad got commendations. But something changed after that mission. Chun became quieter, more focused. She started spending her downtime in the firebase medical facility, helping the army doctors treat local nationals who came in for care. One night, I found her in the med bay at 0300, organizing supplies that didn't need organizing. Can't sleep? I asked. Just thinking, Master Chief. I pulled up a chair. In the teams, you learn when someone needs to talk and when they need space. This felt like the former. That woman in the village, Chin said finally. Her wound? It was from stepping on debris. Rusty metal. Completely preventable if she'd had access to basic medical care. The boy? Those burns were from a cooking fire. Could have been treated immediately, but the Taliban wouldn't let them go to the clinic. I read the report. Master Chief, we go on these missions, we capture bad guys, we gather intelligence. And that matters. I know it matters. But there are villages all over this province where people are dying from things that could be prevented with basic medicine. Things I could treat with supplies we throw away. I knew where this was going. Chun, I'm not questioning the mission. I'm thinking about what else we could do. We're not humanitarian aid workers. We're a SEAL team. I know. But we're here anyway. We're in these villages anyway. And we have capabilities they don't. It was a dangerous line of thinking for someone in her position. Mission creep, scope expansion, losing focus on what we were actually sent here to do. But I also understood it. Every operator who's spent time downrange has that moment where they realize the complexity of what we're doing, the gap between what we can accomplish militarily and what the people actually need. What are you suggesting? I asked. I don't know yet, but I think I want to figure it out. 3 days later, we got hit. It was supposed to be a routine patrol, showing presence in a valley where Taliban activity had decreased. 6 operators, Chun, and our interpreter. Like Kit, low profile. The ambush came from 3 sides simultaneously. Coordinated, professional, exactly the kind of complex attack that required planning and discipline. These weren't random fighters. This was a trained unit. The first RPG missed our lead element by inches. The second hit the compound wall behind us, showering us with debris. Then the machine gun fire started. We took cover in an abandoned building, returning fire and trying to identify the enemy positions. I counted at least 15 fighters, maybe more, with good fields of fire and prepared positions. This was a setup, Rodriguez shouted over the gunfire. They knew we'd be here. He was right. Someone had leaked our patrol route. We were outnumbered, outgunned, and pinned down in a building with limited cover. Then Thompson, the operator Chun had treated for the ankle injury, went down. Round through the shoulder, severed artery, bleeding out fast. Chun moved before I could give the order. She crossed 10 feet of open ground under fire, grabbed Thompson, and dragged him to cover. I watched rounds impact inches from her position, concrete chips flying, but she didn't hesitate. "I need covering fire," she shouted, already applying pressure to Thompson's wound. We gave her covering fire. Chun worked in that controlled space between calm and chaos that only the best combat medics can access. Tourniquet, pressure dressing, for line. Her hands were covered in blood, but steady as surgical steel. "He's stable," she said. "But we need to get him out of here, or he's going to die." I called for air support. 5 minutes out. 5 minutes is a lifetime in a firefight. That's when I saw her looking at something through a gap in the wall. "Master Chief, movement on the east side. Civilians." "What?" She pointed. Through the dust and smoke, I could see them. Women and children, running from the fighting, trapped between our position and the Taliban fighters. The Taliban were using them, deliberately pushing them into the open, knowing we wouldn't fire if civilians were in the line of fire. Those bastards, Rodriguez spit. Chun was already thinking. I could see it in her face, that look she got when she was solving a problem. Master Chief, I have an idea. But you're not going to like it. Try me. I speak enough Pashto to communicate basic information. If I can get to those civilians, I can direct them to safety. Get them out of the kill zone. Chun, you'll be completely exposed. I know, but they'll die if someone doesn't help them. And the Taliban are using them to pin us down. If I can move them, we can break the ambush. It was insane. It was also probably our best option. Rodriguez, you and Jackson provide covering fire. Chun, you move fast, and you stay low. The second you have them moving, you get back to cover. Clear. Clear, Master Chief. Chun moved like I taught every operator to move. Fast, low, using every scrap of cover. The Taliban fighters saw her and shifted fire, but she was small and quick and Rodriguez was putting rounds exactly where they needed to go. She reached the civilians. Maybe 20 people, mostly women and children, huddled behind a low wall, and started speaking in Pashto. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I saw the effect. The civilians started moving, following her directions, heading toward a compound that would give them cover and get them out of the crossfire. Then one of the children fell. Little girl, maybe 6 years old, too scared to move. Chun went back for her. I watched through my scope as she scooped up that child and ran, Taliban rounds kicking up dust around her feet. She made it to the compound, got the civilians inside, and then started back toward our position. That's when she got hit. The round caught her in the side, just below her body armor. She went down hard, and my heart stopped. Chun is down. Rodriguez was already moving, but he was too far away, too exposed. I saw Chun push herself up, saw her take 2 steps toward our position before her leg gave out, saw her look at us, make a decision, and instead of crawling toward safety, she turned back to the civilians. She crawled into that compound where she directed them, and I lost visual. Air support, 30 seconds, our radio operator shouted. It was the longest 30 seconds of my life. The Taliban fire intensified, trying to finish us before the aircraft arrived. We returned fire, keeping them pinned, but all I could think about was Chun, wounded and alone with a group of civilians in a combat zone. Then the A-10 Warthog arrived, and the world exploded. The aircraft made 2 gun runs, that distinctive BRRRT sound of the 30mm cannon tearing through the Taliban positions. The enemy fire slackened, then stopped. Go, I ordered. Rodriguez, Jackson, with me. Get Chun. We moved fast through the settling dust. The compound was 40 meters away, across open ground, but the Taliban were either dead or running. We breached the door. Chun was sitting with her back against the wall, applying a pressure dressing to her own wound while a group of terrified civilians watched. The little girl she'd saved was holding her hand. Master Chief, she said, pale but focused. Good timing. Can you walk? Probably not. But I stopped the bleeding. Rodriguez and I carried her to the medevac landing zone. The little girl followed us the whole way until her mother finally caught up and pulled her back. As the helicopter lifted off with Chun and Thompson, I watched her through the open door. She gave me a thumbs up. Professional to the end. Chun spent 2 weeks recovering at Landstuhl Medical Center in Germany. The round had missed her vital organs by inches, but had done enough muscle damage to end her deployment. She was going home. I flew to Germany to check on her before she transferred stateside. I found her in physical therapy, working through exercises that clearly hurt, but refusing to show it. When she saw me, she tried to stand at attention. I waved her down. At ease, Chun. How are you feeling? Like I got shot, Master Chief. But I'll live. How's Thompson? Already back to full duty. Says he owes you his life. He doesn't owe me anything. That's the job. I sat down next to her. I read the after-action report. What you did, moving those civilians, going back for that girl. Command is recommending you for a Silver Star. She looked uncomfortable. I just did what needed to be done. That's what they all say. I paused. Chun, I also read your transfer request. You're leaving the teams. She met my eyes. Yes, Master Chief. I am. Can I ask why? You're one of the best corpsmen I've ever worked with. You've got a future in special operations if you want it. Chen was quiet for a long moment, looking out the window at the German countryside. Master Chief, do you remember what I said that night in the med bay? About wanting to figure something out? I remember. I figured it out. Those civilians I helped, they didn't need a SEAL team. They needed a medic. Just a medic. Someone who could treat preventable wounds, teach basic hygiene, provide care without all the tactical operations around it. There are programs for that. NGOs, military civil affairs, I know. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm putting in for a transfer to naval medical humanitarian programs. I want to work in places where people need basic medical care and don't have access to it. I understood, but I had to ask. You realize you'll never make chief that way? The advancement opportunities, I don't care about making chief, Master Chief. I care about using my skills where they'll do the most good. And for me, that's not hunting Taliban. It's helping the people who get caught in the middle. She wasn't wrong. Hell, she might have been more right than anyone else I'd served with. You're a good corpsman, Chun. The best I've worked with. If this is what you want, I'll support your transfer. Thank you, Master Chief. As I stood to leave, she called after me. Master Chief, that little girl I pulled out of the ambush. What about her? Our interpreter told me her name. Layla. It means night in Arabic. She told me she wants to be a doctor when she grows up. Chin smiled, and for the first time since I'd met her, she looked completely at peace. That's why I'm doing this. Because maybe, somewhere down the line, Layla will get to be a doctor. And maybe she'll help people the way I helped her. That's worth more than any medal. Chin transferred out of Naval Special Warfare 6 months later. Last I heard, she's working with a military humanitarian program in East Africa, running medical clinics in places that don't have reliable healthcare access. She doesn't talk about her time with the teams, doesn't put it on social media, doesn't do interviews, doesn't write memoirs. That's not who she is. I still have the photo from our deployment, the whole squad, taken a week before Chin got hit. She's in the back row, smallest person in the picture, medical pack on her shoulders, that quiet professional expression on her face. Thompson has a copy of that same photo on his desk. So does Rodriguez. So do I. Because we all learned something from Petty Officer Second Class Sarah Chun. We learned that courage isn't just about running toward danger. Sometimes it's about choosing to help people even when it's not part of the mission, even when it doesn't advance your career, even when it means leaving behind something you're good at to do something you believe in more. The SEAL ethos talks about quiet professionals who don't advertise their actions or seek recognition. Chun embodied that better than most of the operators I've served with. She saved Thompson's life in a firefight. She saved those civilians in the village. She saved that little girl during an ambush. And she did it all without caring who got the credit or whether it would help her advancement. That's a warrior. That's a corpsman. That's a professional. A few months ago, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. No subject line, just a photo attachment and a single sentence. The photo was of a medical clinic. Basic structure, solar panels on the roof, line of patients waiting outside. Standing in the doorway, wearing scrubs and a tired smile, was Chun. The sentence read, "Still keeping people alive, Master Chief. Still the job." I printed that photo and put it next to the deployment picture on my wall. Because sometimes the hardest missions aren't the ones where you face enemy fire. They're the ones where you have to choose between what's easy and what's right, between what advances your career and what serves your values. Chin chose right every single time. The teams are full of heroes, men and women who run toward danger, who sacrifice for their teammates, who serve with distinction and honor. But Chin taught me that sometimes the greatest act of service is knowing when to walk away from the fight and dedicate yourself to a different mission. She's not hunting Taliban anymore. She's teaching mothers how to prevent infections. She's treating children who've never seen a doctor. She's training local nurses to provide care long after she's gone. That little girl, Layla, I looked her up through our interpreter contacts. She's in school now, top of her class, still wants to be a doctor. Because one medic decided that saving a child was more important than seeking cover. The Navy doesn't talk about Chin much. Her story doesn't fit the narrative they want. It's complicated. It raises questions about mission scope and the role of special operations in humanitarian contexts. But every corpsman who goes through training at Fort Sam Houston hears about her. Every SEAL who deploys with a medical attachment knows about the medic who earned a Silver Star and then walked away to treat sick kids in Africa. She's a legend, not because she wanted to be, but because she understood something fundamental about service that too many people forget. The mission is important. The fight is important. Defeating the enemy is important. But saving lives is everything. And sometimes, the bravest thing a warrior can do is put down the weapon and pick up the medical kit, knowing that the battles that matter most are the ones fought with compassion, skill, and an absolute refusal to leave anyone behind, whether they're wearing a uniform or not. Chin understood that. She lived it, and she's still living it. Somewhere in East Africa, in a clinic with solar panels and a line of patients, a quiet professional is doing what she's always done, keeping people alive. That's the job, and nobody does it better. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Epic Recon Stories. Here we tell the missions that never made the headlines, the decisions made in silence, and the people who carried them. More stories are coming soon.